Hello, future bestsellers. Thanks so much for being here today with us. We were just talking backstage about how challenging it can be to write when you have kiddos around. And here's Lainey's first comment today. Public schools are closed due to extreme heat, and I have children crawling all over the house.
Oh my gosh.
Hard to work. Hard to work. Extreme heat, though. I'm kind of surprised about that. I actually want to hear more about that. I had
Me
not heard
too.
anything about it.
We're uncomfortably warm too. Not extreme because I think we're a little bit cooler than Pittsburgh, but it's still got really warm yesterday to the point where it was not
Not
working well.
not comfortable. That's really interesting. It's been really hot here, like high 80s, but that's sort of typical for this time of year in Florida. And we have been spending every afternoon in the pool, which has been very nice. Very, very nice. All right. Oh my God. Daisy says I'm in Vegas and it's only 70, but it's 8 a.m. Yeah. It's been really, it's so far very hot summer. All right, let's do our introductions really quickly, and then we'll go through it because I skipped several comments, so we'll go back through and say hi to everybody who just arrived. Let's start with you today, Robert. Tell us a little about you and your awesome channel.
Well, my channel is The Story Detective, where I put various forms of storytelling under a Sherlockian microscope and break down the craft for the viewer. And today I'm going to be working on hopefully the last two scenes of my novel, which this week has been a disaster to try to get back to.
Maybe there's a full moon or something. I too have had writing disaster all week. How have you been writing, Michelle?
It's been kind of a slog. I'll be honest. Like I feel like I have just enough energy to give to the stuff that I have to do by contract,
Right.
and my own stuff has just been sliding.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that.
Levels are strange, but they said we've had extreme solar flares and that's messed with some areas and some people too. So
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. Michelle, tell us a little. Well, sorry. Welcome, Robert. Did I just cut you off in the middle? I'm
no.
okay. Good. I just realized, like, wait, did he finish, or did I just jump in and start chit chatting? Michelle, tell us a little about you and your awesome channel before we get started, or as we get started.
All right, I'm Michelle Schusterman. My channel is Writing Workshops and Traditional Publishing Chat and Writing Vlogs. And thank you very much for having me.
Thanks as always for being here, both of you. I'm Lisa Daly. On my channel, we talk about how to write a book you're super proud of and get it published. And I am the author of, I'm a hybrid author. This is bad already. I can't even explain who I am. Hi, I'm Lisa Daly. I'm a hybrid author, formerly traditionally published, now indie published, of romantic comedies and nonfiction advice. Let's say hi to some of our friends in the chit chat, and then we'll get some writing done. Doll's here. Hi, Doll. We are super, super glad to see you. I was wearing a sweater earlier. I'm at that point in my day. It's what, 11 here. So my office has windows on two sides, water reflects. So it's basically like a little oven in here by the afternoon. And I'm right now like, oh, I was chilly this morning. Now, sweater off. So I'll be baking in like another 3 hours. Miss Texas G is here. Hello. We are super glad to see you today. John H. Stevenson the fourth is here. Tequila. Eating now, but have some questions. Be back later. All right, John, we are always delighted for your questions. Laney says district defines extreme heat protocol as 90. It gets super hot on the upper floors of those ancient buildings. I can totally believe that. Well, and Florida, like every place is air conditioned, but a lot of places, in the Midwest in particular, don't, they're not used to having that sort of extreme heat. And so, I remember, I don't know, it's probably been 10 or 15 years ago when there was that crazy heat wave in Chicago. And you had all those, older people really struggling because they're in all these old apartment buildings that did not have air conditioning. Devin's here. That's like the most depressing thing to start off a sprint with. Cool breezes for everybody. Just imagine that tropical breeze. Okay, so Devin's here. Hello, Devin. We are super, super glad to see you here today. 88 Green is here. Hello. We are very happy to see you. Kara's got 52 in northeastern Colorado. That sounds like a very pleasant time.
Yeah.
I was just in Denver, what, like a week and a half ago, and then also like 3 weeks ago. And the weather was, well, the first time I had like 80-degree weather on day one and snow, inches of snow on day two. But the last time it was just so pleasant. Like, just one of the things I love about Colorado is that there's no humidity and the air just is so nice, crisp, and warm, feels great. Emily says, I never get to catch these live. I always have to catch the replays. It's going to be 77, but it's been almost 90 for the last handful of days. Oh my gosh. Emily, we're so glad you're here in person today. Yay. Maz is here. Hello. Glad to see you. Yep. I totally feel that.
Hot rain is the worst.
Yes. Oh my God. Right. It's like you're being boiled alive. Maz says, but floor to ceiling windows so it gets roasting. That's like how my office is not floor to ceiling, but they are, which is kind of crazy because most of the other windows in the house are actually sliding doors. But in my office, and that's probably why I don't have a slider, because I've got window here, window there. It's like a fishbowl, and the sun comes up like that, like right to the water. Oh, so very, very nice, very nice. Oh, Moz loves warm rain. Warm, I don't mind. Hot, like it feels
When
like
it's
it's
hot and humid and raining.
yeah, right. It's just like a sticky you can't get out of. Yeah,
Yeah,
Mary's here.
this coast, we had 2 weeks of rain or more, and it was kind of soupy and humid. And then when it got warm, all of a sudden it was like a greenhouse effect.
Yes. I know. I basically just live in the pool this time of year. I have like little fans out there. There's something about the breeze coming off the water is actually nice and cool generally. So I do love that. But yeah. Maz says in the UK, I don't think we get hot rain. You're lucky. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our first 5-minute warm-up sprint. And while Mary's like, party in Lisa's pool. Come on over. We're going to start with our first 5-minute sprint. So let us know in the chat what you guys are working on today. We will, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about what everybody is going to be working on. Let me get that 5-minute timer up on the screen. You guys are so proud of me. I did them ahead of time this time. All right, here we go. Sometimes I do that and it doesn't work, but today it did. All right, everybody. We're going to start with 5 minutes on the clock. We're going to do our very, very first sprint. We're going to get those caffeinated drinks, get your document open, your stickers or notebook or whatever it is you need to make things go, and we'll get started, and then we'll do some 20-minute sprints after that. All right, here we go, everybody. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Let's hit it. All right, we are back. How did everybody do? Let us know in the chat how your first 5 minutes went, whether you did a sprint or you're just opening up your doc or something else. Let us know what you are working on today. So, speaking of that, Michelle, what are you going to be working on today?
I am still editing pages for my book coach client.
Very nice. How about you, Robert? What are you working on today? You say you're writing the last chapters of your
Yeah.
novel.
I've got about 2 chapters left, but one is kind of a long one.
Well, we better let you get to that because it would be awesome if you finished your book today, wouldn't it? Oh my gosh, what do you think? As I don't know how long your chapters are, or what your pace is. How long is it taking you about to write a chapter?
It depends on length. I've finished most of them within a matter of hours to a day going over it, but this one, I've given it a couple of shots and spent an hour or so, but this is new material and there's some problems and
Mm-hmm.
blocked.
Yeah. Well, you let us know if you want to talk that through. Yeah. But maybe this week you finish the book. That would be
Yeah,
phenomenal. Ooh.
that's my plan, to just get it finished because it needs to be finished.
Very nice, very nice. I am actually working on the course today for my write a self-help book. I wrote write a self-help book, and now I'm working on a course to go along with it. So I'm super excited about that. But it's like one of those things where you're not. I'm having a hard time focusing, and the reason is because we have had a surprise baby visitor who is going to stay for the summer at least, and we're not like so we're not set up for baby, and so it's been like really challenging. Like when I wrote my first book, my son used to take these 3-hour naps every day, and I literally wrote my first book during when he would take these naps. But this baby is more like my daughter, who is like, I didn't write for like 5 years. She was in my lap all the time. She was always really busy, wanted to play. She's like, da, 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 da. So super, super challenging to like figure that whole thing out right now. So how about you guys? We were talking about that earlier. So Michelle, you were saying, I was asking you about how you were doing with your writing, being on the road.
Yeah.
And you said,
well, as far as like how I schedule my days and stuff, I try to front load as much as I can in the morning because that's just when I wake up early and that's when I'm most productive. Some afternoons I get a second wind and I work on my own books. Like if I'm going to work on my own stories, that's when it happens. Others, like yesterday, I take a nap. And I have nothing, absolutely nothing left to give. I don't know. Right now, I feel like I'm in a little bit of a phase where it's taking all of my energy to do the contracted stuff for my clients, and there's nothing left for me.
mm-hmm.
These periods just kind of happen sometimes,
Yep. They do happen sometimes. And you're like, well, you've got to get your client work done first. And so absolutely, definitely. How about you, Robert? How's it going for you?
Well, like I said, it's been a sketchy week, but kind of similar lately to what Michelle was saying. I mean, the ideal day would be working on some kind of client stuff. And if I don't have client stuff, at one round in the morning, then have lunch, maybe, some afternoon exercises, and then come back to it. But sometimes coming back to it just hasn't quite had that rhythm. So I think it is just the change of seasons, because there's just that.
Yeah, I could see that. When you had said something earlier about when we were talking about like something's going on in the world right now, you're like, oh, there were some big sun flares, and who knows about that? Like, I mean, we know that messes up electronics, but I think some of that stuff messes us up too.
Yeah.
Certainly people are impacted by tidal effects. So, even if it's just like additional pressure on your brain causing people to, behave like different, or maybe it's just that we've been socialized to think crazy shit happens when the moon is full. I don't know what the reason is, but it is there. So who knows?
Well, we all carry our own electromagnetic field, so it probably
Right.
does affect us to some degree, maybe some of us more than others. So
Right. I certainly feel zapped this week and all week, so I can see that. Tina's here with us today. Hi, Tina. Super glad to see you today. Doll is working on video scripts. Nice job. Mary is working on the final chapter of Tricks, aka the Hooker book. Yay! This thing is coming in for a landing. It's coming in soon. I'm very excited about that. Emily, 7 words, mostly rereading for context before I dive in today. Very nice. I know I always have to do that, especially if it's been like a day. Well, I usually do the reread anyway of the whatever I wrote the day before. But if it's been like a couple days, then I have to, even kind of go farther back to get kind of into it. Mary still has a couple pieces in the middle, but very eager to get to the end. I can definitely feel that. I feel like I miss Kara earlier. 77 words, trying to make a sweet second chance over 40 Christmas romance come together by the end of the month for an anthology. I love this. A holiday anthology, a sweet holiday anthology. Yeah, that's pretty fantastic. Love, love, love that. OMG, my husband literally got zapped in the hospital yesterday due to AFib. He's okay now. Didn't think about solar flares. Oh my God.
My dad has had that done so many times.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mary.
yeah.
That's I was worried. I was actually worried about Dave because well, we'll talk about it later. I was worried about Dave because I'd sent him an email and I didn't hear back from him, which is highly unusual. So yes, we know what you meant. We know what you meant. I said solar flares, even though you wrote solar fares. That's when you get really cheap airline flares to drive. I blew it. I blew the joke. Sorry, guys. All right. So thank God Michelle laughed before I finished, and hopefully that covered up the part I screwed up. So today, because of the surprise baby, because of the solar flare slowdown, because we are going to talk about later today, in addition to your questions, feel free to drop them in the chat if you have any. In addition to your questions today, we are going to talk a little bit about how to get things done when other stuff in your life is not cooperating, whether it's a surprise baby or a puppy, or you suddenly got busy at your day job or with your client work, but you got a deadline impending. How do you manage all that stuff? Because I need help. All right. So let's start off, you guys, with a 20-minute I almost said a 20-minute video with a 20-minute timer. We're going to get some writing done first thing this morning. If you haven't already, please drop it in the chat. Let us know what you're going to be working on today. And I think I already told you guys I'm working on my course stuff today, which I'm very behind on. I have lots of projects I'm very behind on right now. I'm trying to just keep my head above water and not freak out. All right, here we go, everybody. Getting started in 3, 2, 1. Let's cha-cha. I muted myself, then I unmuted, muted, unmuted. Very, very nice. How did you guys do on that last sprint?
Better.
Good. All right. I love that. I know I was actually very productive. I'm super excited about that because I have not felt productive for several days. Tequila. Uh, Doll says, haha, that's the topic of my video script. Can we write when life is difficult? Very nice. Doll, look at you. Great job. Great job. Lainey says, Elena Johnson, if you guys don't know her books, you should definitely check them out. She's a romance writer, but she also writes a lot of super helpful books for authors. And she is really smart. She makes a ton of money, and you should definitely listen to her. She always talks about writing from her steering wheel desk in 15-minute increments during kid pickup lines, but I just can't shift gears that fast. I have done that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I have. I used to take my laptop because my kids' school had, like, if you got there like half an hour early, then you were out of the pickup line right away. But if you waited until school got out, you were out of, like, it would take longer. It was actually better to sit there for, 20 or 30 minutes and get in the main loop. Otherwise, you're just sitting out there doing nothing. And you could park. And so I would get there early with my little laptop and just for a half an hour until, I know, right? Until the kids got in the car. But it's been a while since I did a carpool pickup. I do a lot of times when I'm driving my daughter's school, there's like a big long drive, and I'll dictate then. But yeah, like 15-minute increments for me. Every time I shift gears, when we were talking about this, some people, it takes longer to do code switching, which is basically shifting from one task to another. And I find if I get interrupted, even if it's just for a minute, it's like 20 minutes before I can get back into the groove, and sometimes longer. Anybody else have that? Can you get back to it? I always admire people who can, like,
I can now, but I went through a period where when I was disrupted, it took me a while to get back to things, and it was so frustrating.
Yeah, it really is, because you're like, oh, I have an hour to write, but now, like, the guy outside mowing the lawn just distracted me, or the doorbell rang because somebody needed a signature on a package, and you're like, well, there goes 20 minutes of my 1 hour that I had scheduled today. So yeah, that's a really really difficult thing. Kara got 354 words. Bop, bop, bop. I did not count. That's awesome. Congratulations, Kara. I did not count my words because I was writing sales copy. So that is not nearly as exciting. And you know how it is, like, you're copying and pasting from different things. So yeah. 121 words from Emily. Nice. Very nice. We're very proud of you. Doll says, I take forever to do code switching. I feel you. Distraction.
Things where I feel like what you're working on and just your head's like, sometimes I can do that. Dip into something for 10 minutes and come back out and then dip back in. And then sometimes I cannot. It takes 10 minutes just to get my head around being in that world again,
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I will say, especially when my kids were younger, maybe I need to redo this. So one of the things that I would do when my kids were younger is I would drop them off at school and write at the beach. But when I was not able to do that routine, and the great thing about writing a beach, no distractions, and no internet. Like, they have it, but no internet for me. And so that's always been like my most productive place to write. But I can't do that right now because we have a baby visitor, which is awesome, but also challenging to write, because, like, every time I sit down to get anything done, then like 5 minutes later, there's some sort of baby emergency. And I know we have a number of parents and single parents online. And it's not just that. Sometimes it's your sick pet, or your job, or your spouse, or whatever. So today we're going to talk about some strategies for getting your work done when your life has devolved into chaos.
Yeah, I
That
have
feels like a good topic.
been in the chaos field, so yeah, I have a few strategies.
Yeah, good. So that is what we're going to talk about today. There's part of me that's just like, can we just do 93 sprints because this is the only chance I'm gonna have to work today. So we'll do some of that too. But if you guys have some advice on things that work for you, let us know. We'll sort of talk about some strategies that have worked in the past. It's been a long time since I haven't like certainly I've gotten busy or there are family obligations or things like that, but it's been a really long time since I've been this constantly distracted where I can't like
Yes.
where it's not going to end for a while. It's not, yeah. So I need to figure out how to deal with the situation that I am currently in.
Mhm.
All right. John Stevenson has a question. Can an agent show your work to other people outside of the agency, like an editor and publisher, before you sign them to be your agent?
I don't know if there's a rule, but that is unethical AF.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. If they're not representing you, no, they can't show it to. I mean, I'm not saying they never do. I don't think most of them do because
And
why?
the ones don't.
Right. No, but
that
think about it. Let's say you've sent out several agents have requested a full. This agent's like, I like this book, but I'm not sure if it's saleable. I'm going to have lunch with my editor friend and show her the pages. And then what happens? Editor friend says, oh, I love this book, but you're not signed with the agent. Well, what if you decide, that agent just wasn't a good fit for me? I'm going to go with this other agent. Now there's this whole like convoluted thing of who gets, the sale, which legally I would think would be the agent you actually sign with, even though it had been shown to the editor by the agent you hadn't signed with. But it just created a giant mess. And no. So I have found like I know that's something that a lot of first time authors worry about, that an agent is going to like steal their work or give the idea to another author. That stuff does not happen. I have worked with a lot, as long as you're dealing with an agent at a reputable agency, and not somebody you might find on editors and predators. Is it predators and editors or editors and I think it's
editors and predators.
Editors and predators. So as long as you're dealing with someone that works for like a real agency,
Right.
even if it's a small agency, a real agency, you're not going to have that problem because their whole careers are built on their reputations. And so if they start screwing over authors, they're not going to have any other authors.
Right.
So,
yep.
So anybody have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say if they try to ask you if they can do that, that is a red flag to me. I'd be like, no, you can't.
Right.
If you think it's good enough to show an editor, then sign me.
Right.
That's yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Right. That's the other thing. Like, it's like, I want to have a baby with you, but I don't want to date. you can't. Yeah. If they want to show it, they would need to sign you. I just got all pink for making that joke. I'm not sure what that says about me. Oh my, people are like, oh, I wear my heart on my sleeve. Mine's on my face. Anyway, Doll's got some good advice. I will say this, you're probably not going to write a lot or at all while grieving a loss, but you can return to writing. Yeah, that's a really good point. A loss is really challenging. I had a super traumatic event that happened to me it's been like 10 years ago now, but it screwed up my writing for months.
Yeah.
Months, because a lot of writing is sitting still in a chair and thinking about stuff. And if something big has recently happened to you, that's the thing you're going to think about, not, your meet cute in the donut shop. So yeah, so it's absolutely true. And sometimes, if you feel like I need to continue progressing my career, you can do other things, but yeah, sometimes it's hard. And that's the thing I think a lot of times people don't. Writers all get this, but people who are outside this, like how challenging it can be when your entire job is dependent on your brain, especially writing comedy. Really challenging if things really depressing in your actual real life.
Yeah, because parts of your subconscious want to retreat to these little rooms of safety, and you don't realize those parts are vital for your writing, and they're kind of locked away.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely the truth. Miss Texas G says, yes, it's true. It's taken me a couple years to get back to writing after my mother passed away. Plus, we lost 4 dogs around the same time. Oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. Even if they're old, even if you know it's coming, right? Odie, as you guys know, Odin is like, he's pretty old. He's like kind of limping around. He's got his hair's kind of thinning out. Like he's a grandpa dog now. And yeah, I don't know how he's going to do. He loves that baby, but holy smokes, it's aging him because he's constantly having to get out of the way and run away. Yeah, exactly. It's very sweet, but yeah. Yeah, and I worry about that because we love him so much. We're so attached to him, and we had adopted him. You know, he was not a puppy when we adopted him. And so when you do that, it's great, but you also have less time with the dog. And we adopted him shortly after we had lost our previous Havanese, Zeus. So yeah, it was a heartbreak. It was just a heartbreak. Super, super sad. Maz wants to know, why is it considered unethical to show someone the manuscript? Sorry, a bit late to this. I spent 20 minutes doing chores and just got back. So if the agent does not represent the book, the reason it would be unethical is because it's not, they don't have a business relationship with you to share this book, which means that your intellectual property is not necessarily being protected. And we often say, you don't have to worry about sending your book to an agent. They're not going to steal it, blah, blah, blah. But it's just not a great idea. It's like, it'd be like a therapist saying like, well, I'm just going to share my notes about about you with my friend at lunch tomorrow.
If you think about it, I mean, it's the agent's job is to know whether, like, they sign you because they feel they can sell your book.
Right.
They don't, if they feel like they need to test the waters first, then it's signaling they're not good at their job.
Right.
First of all. And second of all, let's say they do show some editors your book and then they decide not to represent you and you go with another agent. That agent might be sending your book to editors who have already seen it.
Right. And rejected it.
Yeah, and rejected it. And that doesn't know. So yeah,
that's
crosses a lot of lines.
It does. It crosses a lot of lines.
And,
Thank you for
my standpoint. If people are going to cross one line, you don't know how many other lines they might be crossing and who exactly they're going to be showing it to. I had a disaster with an artist at one point, and he had a lot of big clients. He was fairly new, and there were red flags from the beginning. And I told my creative partner at the time, and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe he would say that or do that because he's so nice to me." And I said, "Okay, I'll kind of grin and bear it." He turned into a real disaster, and everybody was going to sue him within like 2 years.
Oh,
so I say, when you see those red flags, don't ignore them, because if they're going to be crappy from the beginning, there's a lot more to come.
Exactly. Yeah. So Maz, it is actually completely ethical and common practice to share in-house. So a lot of times an agent will, first of all, a lot of times you have like an intern or a junior agent reading or an assistant reading manuscripts before the agent actually sees them, just as a way of sort of sifting through the slush pile. But also a lot of times agents have, will pass it along and say like, well, my list is full, or this seems like a book that's like right up my co-agent's alley. I'll give you a really good example. When I first wrote 15 Minutes of Shame, I loved my first agent was my nonfiction agent. She sold my first novel, but she had never handled nonfiction or never handled fiction before. And I'm like wanting to get this made into a movie. And this was just way outside her expertise. She was a terrific agent, got me great money, like nitpicked every deal, and was really wonderful. But again, not a fiction agent. And so when I was shopping for a fiction agent, I reached out to Trident, which is like like the biggest lit agent. Well, probably CAA is now, but at the time was like the biggest lit agency, and it's certainly still one of the biggest. And they have like all these like million seller clients. And what do? I reached right out to the chairman and said, "Hey, here's my first novel. Here's how my first nonfiction did. Here's how this is going. Blah 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 blah." And I got a message back from him and also from Jenny Bent, who was an agent there at the time, who said, like, I had sent it off at like 10 o'clock that night, and like the next morning I had a message from Jenny Bent, which was really awesome, like very but she sent me a thing and said, "Hey, Robert passed this along, da 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 da, da, and I'd love to talk to you. I'd really love your work, blah blah blah." And so that was great. It worked out really well. When one of my agents at Fine Print, my agent Brendan Deneen, left to go to the publisher side, he introduced me to and recommended me to and for Stephanie Evans, who was the president of the agency at the time. And so that worked out really well. So in-house, super common and could definitely benefit you. But out of house, not so much. All right. John says I'm approaching the point, so I guess I'll find out myself. Did the query tracker forms auto reject after 6 months? I ask because I have other projects I can query and you don't double submit. Does anybody know? I'm actually not super. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. I have to say, I do not know the answer to that question. If anybody else does, please jump in. But I have not. I haven't used Query Tracker. Like I'm familiar with it. I've certainly like dug around in there, but I've never had cause to use it. So, yeah, 6 weeks. I would think that it would not just kick you off at 6 weeks, but because a lot of times it's 6 weeks before they even say like that they want a full. I mean, sometimes you get like a response back right away, but for the most part, I mean, sometimes things take months. So I'd be surprised if they did that after 6 weeks. Although you might have to update it or something. Although I can, let's see, 15 minutes of shame. That's a great. Oh, well, thank you. Although I can beat that, less than 5 seconds for me. I'm not quite sure what that was. Sorry. All right. Oh, 6 weeks. Okay. All right, you guys, let's go ahead and do our next 20-minute sprint. If you have questions, please pop them into the chat and we will be sure to answer them. Although I'm sorry we had no useful information on Query Tracker. Probably. Okay. There we go. All right. Who's ready for another sprint? I am. Yay. All right, guys, we've got 20 minutes up on the clock and we are going to make this happen today. So here we go. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Let's write.
Lisa, are you muted?
Hello, future bestsellers. We are so excited to be writing with you guys here today. I'm feeling very motivated today.
Strange.
How are you guys feeling?
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm geared up.
Sorry guys, I think we're having some technical difficulties.
I went for. I had a coaching client this morning at
I don't
9. And
know, but
then I
the live stream is playing from the
finished
beginning.
with that, and then we
Yeah.
started prepping for the stream. And but I also like
It's
crowbarred in a walk
flashbacking to things.
really quick, and it's like really windy outside today, like almost like hurricane weather, but not
We did
not
have
like
it.
dangerous, but like the pre-hurricane weather, which
Mhm.
I weirdly love. I don't know why I like that, like super windy. I'm a nerd. Anyway, so I went for this like power, like 15-minute like power walk to like hurry up and so now I'm like super energized and ready to roll. So yay! So before we get any further, let's go ahead and do our introductions. I'm going to start with you first today, Robert. Tell us a little about you and your awesome channel.
Himself again.
Okay, well, my awesome channel is The Story Detective, and it's where I take various forms of storytelling and put it under a Sherlockian microscope and break down the craft to make the viewer's journey easier. And that's based on my time working at Marvel and various other places.
Oh my God, I think I found it.
Yeah.
You guys, the window like completely disappeared. I could hear it. I couldn't find it. It was like a nightmare, and apparently started replaying one of our previous sprints where we're wearing completely different clothes. Oh my God. And I could hear everybody. I'm like, keep talking. I can't do this, which I'm sure looked really great. So yeah. I got like really deep into again with this Mac thing. If anybody knows how to turn this feature off, please let me know.
Sure. What is it doing?
Okay, so what happens is now my Mac's about a year old, but when I got this MacBook, and I still have not, I love the MacBook. I hate this feature. So what it does is that, let's say I have StreamYard window open, but now I'm going over to a different window. It like whisks it away and puts it in the sidebar.
I know
But
what you're talking about.
I freaking hate it because
Yeah.
what happened? Yeah, right. And I try to, you can drag the windows, but sometimes it accidentally gets into the sidebar. You can't find it. And I always have 800 windows open anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But like anytime, like and I think what I'd done is like try and grab a picture off the Finder. And so that put it up on the sidebar, and then yeah. So, and then I can hear you guys, but I can't find the window. And I'm like going through my 800 windows. I apologize.
Hey.
And I'm muted. And then I can also hear like, oh, the stream is happening. Like it's just gone on to the next video. So everybody's laughing. This is trippy action replay. Yes, right? Yes, 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 yes. Okay. Let's go back to our questions before that. Okay, so Daisy had an answer to John about a query tracker. She says they don't auto reject. You can set it to CNR, but I think it's not pulled from Query Manager. John says I'm into forms like the one where you put in all the boxes. If they say if you don't hear back for 4 to 6 weeks, it's a rejection, but the query form is still open for them with no response. I'm sorry, but I know like sometimes it takes my agent who loves me and who's been with me for a long time 4 weeks to get through. Like if she's really buried, it can take a long, unless I'm like, this is an emergency. You know what I mean? Like it's not, obviously if I was on deadline, she'd push it up to the top of the pile. But yeah, but anyway, so I think 4 to 6 weeks is not necessarily, sometimes it just takes them longer. You can't query them again until the form clears. I see. And you're wanting to like query a second book with the same agent. Generally, that's sort of considered a no to have 2 open queries at the same time with the same agent.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep considering. Ooh, here's a question about writing a text message in your story. Is it considered dialogue? How would you write it? I would consider it dialogue. It's a form of dialogue, just like if they're talking on the phone or sitting in a restaurant. And how would you write it? You will just usually, like in my manuscript itself, I will just format it in all caps or do some other thing, so that they so that like the formatter would know that it's supposed to be a text message. But even if you're like formatting in Atticus, and my guess is that Vellum also has something similar. If you're formatting it, or if a publisher's formatting it, they'll format it to actually look like little text messages. Atticus has that feature now, because I had well, because that's how a lot of us communicate. So if you're writing contemporary anything, it's really common for people to communicate via text. So it's not a no-no, it's definitely dialogue. And whether you're publishing indie or traditionally, there's a way to handle that in the formatting of the book. Dun, dun, dun. I think after 6-week mark, you can count it as a no, since they may not just reply to anyone unless it's a request. But I think agents may not like getting another product. So yeah, let them answer you first on the first one, if I wasn't clear on that earlier before. So if you have sent them something and you have not heard back yes or no, if it's been a year, then fine. But I don't know. How long would you wait before you sent them something new? I'd wait a long time.
I would too.
Like 6 months or something.
I think the reason, I don't know, I'm totally talking out of my ass here. So this is just what I would guess. But like, most people don't have 2 or more very revised, clean manuscripts ready to go. The impression is that it's more like, oh, you don't like that idea? How about this one? And then if they say sure, they're going to get a not very polished.
Right. Well, and the other thing too is like, a lot of times when an agent likes your work, but they don't like the book, they'll say, hey, this is not right for me, but please send me anything else that you write, or please send me your next project or whatever. Like, that's a great opening right there. They've asked you to send them other stuff. And so in that case, absolutely, I would send them other stuff. Even if that ends up being like your next book isn't a year later, I'd say, hey, I reached out to you a year ago with this title and it wasn't a good fit for you, but you said you'd like to see my future work. And so, here it is. Hope you love it. So, yeah, but if you've got something outstanding and I apologize, John. I feel like I did not quite grasp the question you were asking earlier. I got sort of in the weeds with Query Tracker, but you don't want to have 2 open queries out to the same agent. Dahl says for text messages and stories, you could add the name of the characters who are texting and then a colon, and the text message will also be formatted a bit different from usual dialogue. Your formatter knows. There you go. Oh, we've got an example. Character A, hi B, how are you? Character B, hi A, not well. How about you? All right, there we go. Inception. Okay, so now we get into the comments where things were like happening. Yes, I don't want to interrupt us. I know. We should look at StreamYard. There's probably a way to have you guys be co-hosts instead of guests. Like, since there's a way for you to simulcast it on your channel, there must be a co-host function. We'll look at that just in case this happens again. That perhaps I should be making it. Kara, keeping us on track. 348 words. Yay! That's awesome. I'm super proud. Devin is loving the disaster. Love that. Stage manager. Okay, there's something to that. Yes, if only I could have gotten over to StreamYard. That was my thing, is I could hear us, but I could not find the window that had StreamYard in it. All right. What I mean is the agency say no to open with the agency, correct, but it's past the 6 weeks, so it's considered to be rejected, but query manager is still active. I would ask Daisy about that, because I think she knew more about Query Tracker than the rest of us. Awesome. I see. Is there a way to manually close it?
Yeah, good question. Fair point.
Right. Ramona says, is it even possible for a contemporary story not to have a text message exchange? I think it would be it's hard, because again, that's how we all communicate. Oh, there we go. See, I knew Daisy would have the answer for us. Yeah. You know what Daisy said today? She deserves it. She's awesome. Thank you for your help. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get rolling on our next sprint. If you have we have one sprint left. This will be our final one. If you have a question for when we return, we are delighted to discuss it. And this is kind of funny. I have so many on my note. True. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and do our 20 minutes. I will try very hard not to lose StreamYard again. I just have my windows of StreamYard and what I'm working on open. So how it all got to be this like I cannot tell you. I cannot explain it. I can't guarantee it won't happen again, but hopefully it won't. And someday we'll use this as a trivia question, so be sure to write that down. Okay, here we go. Let's go back to our 20-minute sprint. There we
Sounds
go. We got 20 minutes on the clock. I'll try very hard not to screw this up on the way back this time, but I can't make any guarantees, as you know. All right, everybody, here we go. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Make it count. This is our last sprint. I am unmuted. Yay! All right, so let me go ahead and get rid of this screen. There we go. How did everybody do on that final sprint?
Good.
Yay. Oh, now I've got Michelle muted. Sorry about that.
Oh.
Yep. All right, you're good. It was my fault. I muted you. Um, oh, all right. So this is funny. It literally went into our old stream again. It's just hilarious. Apparently, the universe really wants us to see whatever exciting information was in that sprint or way back when. John says, hugs to you, robot. Very, very sweet. Lainey says, great session. Today, I'm getting a lot done on my revision. Yay. So glad you guys, the Horror Geek, brought me cookies and sushi. Wasn't that sweet? I was like, what? I wasn't expecting. Emily says, I know we're pretty much out of time, but I do have a question about structure. We've got 7 minutes. Act 1. I feel like my story has 2 different inciting incidents, and that's bad. Problem, too much pre-story in Act 1. Okay. Probably problem. If you have too much pre-story in Act 1 or backstory, then that can be a problem. So 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your 2 what are your 2 different, and there can really only be one inciting event. That's the thing that takes your character out of the situation that they're currently in. They're coasting along. Oh, I'll give you an example. Hi, I'm Lisa Daly. I'm an author and I'm just going along my business. And then someone dropped a baby in my lap. So that would be the inciting incident because now my life has changed. I cannot go back to what was happening before, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. So let's think about your character. What is the thing that happens that changes life as we know it? I love Star Wars as an example here because it's sort of obvious, but there are lots and lots of inciting event examples. So can you think of in your story between those 2 different inciting events, what's the thing that happens that makes it so your character cannot go back to the way things were? Because that's really going to be your sort of true inciting event. Anybody else have wisdom of the crowd here? Michelle, Robert, weigh in, please.
That's the big inciting event near the end of the first quarter, and that is that moment of no turning back. Mm-hmm. Technically, anything that happens to your main character is or could be an inciting incident, and people mix things up, I think, a lot with where it should go, what it should be about. But yes, as Lisa said, it's that moment of no turning back where their life crosses that threshold into something that they just can't return to. They don't have a choice.
Right. Michelle, you want to wait? I'm going to pull up a video because I did one about basically 3-act structure, which I think sort of breaks this down in a way that is pretty easy to understand. So, Michelle, do you want to chit chat about this for a second, and then we'll, and then I'll drop that link in because I think that might help.
I think it's important to remember that the rules don't strictly apply every time to every story. Like some stories do have a double catalyst, and that's fine because they need it.
That's true.
Some stories have a catalyst that happens before the story actually starts, and then another. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's only going to be a problem with your story, Emily, if your Act 1 feels very bloated and slow to you.
Right.
Like, is one of those inciting incidents maybe not as inciting as you think it is, or are they both necessary? I don't know the answer. I mean, it really does depend.
Exactly. So the story is about a woman who needs to escape her current situation. So she goes home to an estranged family. She deals with family drama while she's there. So the thing that is your inciting event in this story is the last freaking straw, right? She's miserable. She's got to escape her current situation. Maybe it's dangerous. Maybe it's just unhappy. Maybe. But the thing that is your inciting event is the thing that makes her realize that she has to get out or she'll die, or she has to get out or she'll never be happy, or she has to get out, or she'll work at 7-Eleven the rest of her life. Like whatever it is, it's the last straw. And then, or something, or her house burns down and then she can't go back or something like that. But it's the thing that makes her realize, like, I cannot keep going this way. So
I like to think of the first act as there's three important parts. There's a hook in the beginning. In Star
Mhm.
Wars, it's that moment where the droids are launched from the escape pod and they're headed towards Tatooine. It's sort of like coming towards the planet that Luke is on, even though we haven't met Luke yet. So there's that shadow or portent of what's about to happen.
Right.
Same in the Hunger Games with like the mentioning of the reaping. We don't know what it is, but it's this ominous feeling.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And somewhere
Yeah.
about halfway through the act is that moment when Luke finds R2D2 and he sees the message being played of Princess Leia. That's what's normally called like a call to action,
Mm-hmm.
which is another inciting incident, which is when that, whatever it is, the challenge of the core story first crosses their path. In the Hunger Games, it is the moment of the reaping when she volunteers. And then at the end, when Luke finds his aunt and uncle dead, there's nothing to return home to. So he can't turn back. He has to go with Obi-Wan Kenobi and go off on that adventure.
Mhm.
In the Hunger Games, it's actually a little more subtle, in my opinion, and some other people's, I guess. It's when she kisses Peeta on the cheek and she says, okay, it's like game on. She gets to
Mhm.
that point where she transitions in the moment where she realizes this is real and I can't trust anybody. I need to play the game to survive.
Yeah.
So she's not turning back from that point onward. So if
Right.
you have those three
See, I
things
think it's
working in
I think the
conjunction,
inside. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
when you
And
have those three things working in conjunction, they all kind of feed on one another and build up to that moment where there is no turning back towards the end of the first act.
right. So for me, it feels like when she steps forward to save, what's her sister's name? Prentice, is like a big, like, to take her place is like that's where, okay, everything's going to change now. So and you should also know, like, you can have writers look at the same 800 things and maybe a lot of them will agree what that moment is, but
Mhm.
sometimes you have disagreement and that's still okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love this. So I think this is funny. Mary says the incident mainly the incident should be what shows the characters best. Sometimes people focus too much on the story when it's really there to just show off the character. That's a really interesting point. I also want to talk about when you said, like, you feel like you have too much pre-story. So we have, especially when you're just starting out, we often have like a desire to sort of explain to the reader everything that's happening so they'll know what's going on. But it's okay to leave a little mystery, to just drop them in. Media res is like my favorite way to tell a story, because basically you're just dropping the reader in the middle of the action and they're sort of everybody's sort of catching up to what's happening together. And it can make it really quite a page turner for the reader. If the reader does not need to know that information right now, you can always feed that in a little bit later as they do need to know it. And the reason for that is, especially at the beginning of the book, man, you want to keep those pages turning quick, 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 quick. You want to get your reader sucked in right away. And if you have too much backstory, kind of weighing things down, they can't quite figure out what's important yet, then they're either not going to finish or they're just not going to get engaged with the story. So you have very limited time in the beginning. So only provide the information that the reader is going to need to kind of get a concept of what's happening in the story. You don't need to give them the whole history. You can give them the history later. You can sort of explain it all along, but you don't need to. They don't need to know everything about the world when they, when they first meet it, come in
Yeah.
contact with it. You know what I'm trying to say?
I
Blah
also
blah blah.
I did a 3-part video series at one point too that broke down the first act of Star Wars, The Hunger Games, and Harry Potter, and those transitional
Mm-hmm.
things I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
George Lucas said the inciting incident was that moment with R2D2 in Star Wars, and it is an inciting incident, but Luke wasn't committed yet, and I think that's the important part. Your main
Yeah.
character has to commit to not turning back, otherwise it's not
Right.
the moment where there's no turning back.
Right. Well, and for him, like, his home planet right?
Yeah.
You can't go back then. So yeah. Indiana Jones, he's in a cave. Why? That's what gets us to watch or read, right? That's the thing. I love to like my first book I had my first novel, not my first book, but my first novel, 15 Minutes of Shame, opens with a character squatting behind a dumpster at a gas station spying on her husband. Do we know everything about her life and how she came to be behind the dumpster? No, we do not. But do we want to know? If you saw someone squatting, like someone who looked like a person you would not normally see squatting behind a dumpster, you might, slow your roll a little bit through the gas station and check it out and see what was happening. So there you go.
Mhm.
I get that. It makes sense. I also need to give her a reason to go home. She doesn't think of home as a safe place. So there needs to be a compelling reason to go there, right? Of course. So if if the situation at her home, not her like family home, but at her current home is so bad that you would go into a situation is going to be awful, right?
Yeah.
It has to be bad.
Yeah.
But that's okay. The
I
more
think
we
what you're
torture our
saying
characters,
works.
the more we love them.
I think what you're saying works there in terms of, her reluctance to go home, because the main character is always reluctant to take that big life
Oh yeah.
challenge, as we usually are. And then you give them a compelling reason to, do just that.
Ooh, Miss Texas G says, how about a piece of mail from some lawyer's office that connects them? Yep, you can do that. That's interesting. You can have an action scene where you have to pepper it with some backstory so they can understand the scene. That's it. You really just tell them we all kind of can get stuck with some exposition with some exposition, and we just want to like keep things rolling as much as we possibly can. That makes sense too. I've got approximately 20,000 words before she actually gets home. That's too much, right? That feels like a little bit too much to me. I guess it depends on the specific, like to me, this feels like contemporary, maybe thriller, mystery, something. I mean, it could be romance. I haven't gotten that far, but it feels contemporary. So yeah, 20K before that does feel like a little bit too much to me. What about you guys?
Yeah, most likely.
Michelle?
I don't know what the total word count of her book is.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Like
It's hard to tell. Yeah, it does feel like, it feels like the time my agent said, hey, this is supposed to be a romantic comedy, and we don't even meet the guy for 70 pages. What the hell? So yeah, 20K feels like a lot to me to like get into the thing. Oh, look at this. Doll says, for craft and story structure, I fully recommend Robert's channel. Thank you, Doll. Robert is he's quite the craftsman. I highly recommend him myself. What's the scene? 15 inches of I don't know what that means, but it sounds smutty. All right, there we go. You guys, it's 1:05, so it's time for us to head out, but we will definitely see you next week. And I feel like there was a private chat that I missed. Oh, there we go. So you guys are awesome. Let's quickly say goodbye because we've kept Michelle past her time. So you get to go first, Michelle.
All right, I'm Michelle Schusterman. I write middle grade young adult novels. My channel is Writing Workshops, Traditional Publishing Chat, and Writing Blogs.
Thank you, as always, for being here and sharing your wisdom with all of us. Robert, tell us a little about you and your awesome channel.
On that channel, you can find that Storycraft broken down when I put it under a Sherlockian microscope, and hopefully deliver some good clues to craft to make your journey easier.
Very nice. If you want to see that Sherlockian microscope, you should definitely check out Robert's photo on his Facebook page, which I just meandered upon this morning. It's very Sherlockian. And I was like, I don't know how long this has been up here, but I totally freaking love it. Speaking of freaking love, I'm Lisa Daly, and I write contemporary romance, romantic comedies, and nonfiction advice. Thanks so much for being here, you guys. We will see you next Wednesday. You are awesome, and keep on writing.
Keep those keyboards clacking, people.